Hey, why don't we go ahead and get started? So, hello everyone. Welcome to Ask the Grant Writing Experts. I'm Dr. Meg Bouvier. You know me as the creator of your library of NIH grantsmanship courses. I have nearly 40 years of experience at NIH as an applicant, an intramural researcher, a staff writer, and now a full-time NIH grant mentor. I've helped clients land nearly $600 million in federal funding, and I'm here to answer your NIH grant writing questions. So grab a cup of coffee and let's get started. So if you are attending live, and I see that people are still kind of logging in and settling in, just a reminder that you're in listen only mode. There is a Q&A box. You can start typing your questions in there. I'm going to do a short mini tutorial today, but it's fine to just go ahead and start typing questions in there whenever you want. If you're watching this as a recording, and I think the overwhelming majority of you are watching this as a recording, either on our YouTube channel or within our course library, a reminder that today is October 15th, 2025, and everything that I'm saying is true to the best of my knowledge as of today, but you should always check back with NIH, particularly your program officer, to see if anything has changed. What you should be viewing in the library right now, we are in the period of time where I'm transitioning from working with the Cycle 3 applicants who have deadlines in October and November. So, for example, today I'm editing a resubmission with a November 5th deadline. But I'm kind of coming into the home stretch on those and transitioning to launching the people who are working on the starting their application work for the deadlines in February and March. So if you are one of those folks, you probably want to be watching either Master the R or Master the K series, whichever is relevant for you, and working your way through probably Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, preparation and specific aims, and kind of getting all your prep steps straightened out, nailing down your aims, vetting the project idea with mentors and with the program officer, nailing down the exact NOFO and study section, etc. In terms of, oh, and of course, we're running our boot camp. So if you have not signed up for boot camp, it's not too late to do that. It is 4 sessions on consecutive Thursdays. The first session was last Thursday, October 9th, but we make available recordings of these sessions. So if you haven't signed up for it, feel free to sign up for that. Riley will put the sign up in the chat for you. So the second session will be tomorrow at noon Eastern time. They run about an hour and a half to 2 hours. It's usually roughly an hour of didactic presentation and 30 to 60 minutes of questions kind of interspersed throughout there. And what else? Let's see. There's an update to Master the R series that we released, I think within the last month. And the boot camp has been updated since then, even because there have been changes since I did the recording of the pre-recorded course. I also released an update to Master the P series, which are the program project grants, which we'll be talking about today. And I recently released an update to Master the U series, which are the cooperative agreements, particularly the complex ones that are networked and or multi-project. In terms of any NIH updates, of course, there's no update. The government is still shut down. The clock is ticking. It can't go on forever. It becomes increasingly problematic even for Republicans if the government is shut down long term. So I would be looking for government to reopen, hopefully within the next week or so, and probably sometime in November, NIH moving to a temporary funding bill, like a continuing resolution, hopefully by Thanksgiving. Okay, so we are going to do a mini tutorial today because I have just updated the Master the P series course. I decided to do a mini tutorial on a question that I'm asked all the time, which is, when do I know I'm ready to move? I'm an R01 funded investigator, and I'm thinking about a program project grant, center grant, P series application. When do I know I'm ready to make that jump? And I realized I had a lot to say about this, even within a mini tutorial. So I decided to break it in half. And today I'm going to cover, when do you know that you're ready to move into the P series? And in about a month, I'm going to cover how do you prepare what are the preparation steps, and in particular, the all important meeting with the program officer, and what do you prepare in advance of that, and what kind of reports or slides, and what questions should you ask, and when should you have that meeting, and etc. So today is going to be how do you know you're ready? So I am going to open up some slides. This is an excerpt of the Master the P series talks. So this is, I'm going to show you the title slide and the outline for chapter 1 of Master the P series. This is what the outline looks like, and I'm just going to talk about a little bit in this beginning part about what are they, how do they differ, and when are we ready for a P. And in the next session, which I'll do in about a month, I'm going to do funding and support, vetting the idea with the PO and funding and support in advance, and what kind of funding you should get, from where, how much, what it should be for, and of course, vetting the idea with the program officer. So, okay, but for now, let's talk a little bit about how you know you're ready. So what is a P-Series application? So this is also called a program project grant or a center grant or P-Series. Those are all the same thing. So it's a large multi-project effort that includes a variety of research activities. It supports a broad-based, multidisciplinary, typically long-term research with a specific major objective or theme. So long-term meaning it's typically supposed to go beyond the funding term of the initial P-series. And that's actually part of the writing is once NIH helps you launch the center, how does it become self-sustaining beyond that? So that's something that I talk about in the writing portion. That should be part of the grant application. Institutes issue NOFOs to indicate interest in funding this type of program. So center grant applications, there's precious little money for center grants among institutes. And often when they issue a NOFO, it is around a specific topic. Not always, but often it is. To me, it's more problematic when they don't issue it around a specific topic, because you have to do a lot more legwork in terms of speaking with the program officer to figure out what their areas of highest funding priority are. And they're typically multi-project submissions, and what we mean by that, cooperative agreements can be multi-project as well. What we mean by that is that you're all familiar with the format of like an R01, an independent research project. These multi-project submissions like center grants and multi-project use typically have multiple research projects that look like R01s, and then they have other things called cores, and they have an administrative core, and the cores support the projects, and the projects work with each other. So this is a multi-project component. So typically one grantee institution has the financial and legal responsibility for the project. Usually there's a minimum of 2 research projects, but there could be 3, 6, 8. There could be lots and lots of research projects that look a lot like R01s, except they're meant to work cooperatively toward a common goal. And there are these cores that consist of shared resources that support the projects. So there's meant to be synergy among all these elements. So you have to talk quite a bit about the collaboration among the projects and the cores, and how the administrative core oversees that. So it's very important, if you're an R01 applicant, to understand the key differences between a center grant and an R. And in fact, one of the biggest mistakes I see on center grant applications is that the applicant has simply written it like a series of R01s, that they're lacking that synergistic component where the components speak to each other. So the whole point of a center grant is that these projects exist within a center supported by these core facilities, and they accomplish something that no single project can accomplish on its own. So it has to be greater than the sum of its parts. So all of these projects and cores should be unified around some theme or focus that addresses an area of biomedical research interest or a disease area. And again, there's usually multiple research projects, usually at least one core, sometimes more. The investigators collaborate. So there'll be, for example, a PI on each of the projects, but they're collaborating with each other and sharing information and resources within this center. And there's always an administrative core or component that oversees the work of these center grants. And of course, the big thing is to demonstrate synergy among these sections. And in my course, I give tables that I use to show synergy and information sharing among the different component elements. And I usually include those in every section of the application, including the overall section. So program project grants are more difficult to land than an R01. If you look anywhere where funding lines are reported, and that's getting harder and harder, that information is harder and harder to find these days. You'll notice that the funding lines look high, but it's typically because program officers require that you get pre-approval even to submit an application. And this is really, they're doing you a favor when they require this of you, because program project grants, the applications are staggering. They're usually, they could be, for each of the projects, there might be 6 or 12 pages just for a given project. The cores are typically 6 pages. There's a 12-page overall component, a 6 or 12-page admin component. This means that the research narrative, which on an R01 is 12 pages, on a program project grant application could be 80 pages, 100 pages. It could balloon into something huge. And you can imagine it's written by committee. It's very complicated to orchestrate these things. And program officers don't want you to submit something unless it is absolutely in their area of highest priority to them. So typically you need permission for that. Of course, landing a program project grant is very prestigious, both for the PIs and for the organization. And it's typically about $7.5 million, which it can be more than that. It can go up to 10 million or more. And it's all, often PIs will tell me it's been the period of their research career that is the most satisfying and that they feel is the most impactful. So when are you ready for a P? Why do you need a center grant? So what scientific work could you accomplish with a center grant that couldn't be accomplished with R-level funding? And do you have a program to propose that capitalizes on areas of research strength in your organization? You also want to know if the program is innovative. Why will program officers care about it? Again, you have to figure out if it's in an area of highest priority to them. And what will they and Congress and taxpayers see as the national relevance of this center? So when you're considering an NIH center grant application, you want to make sure that you have interested program principal investigators who have typically they have to have R01 funding. They have to have an extensive publication history within the area in which you're proposing. And you have to demonstrate leadership among these PIs typically. And importantly, they have to have the bandwidth to run the center, or typically you have a multi-PI plan on a program project grant, and you might have somebody who's a senior person, who's an eminence in the field, who knows the program officers, who has run centers before. That person typically doesn't have the bandwidth to run the center. So you usually pair them with a mid-career person who probably has not done this before, but has the bandwidth to do it. And the two of them together can make a very effective leadership team. Again, you want to make sure that you're building this in areas of research strength at your institution. So you want to think about, like, if you're a research development person, here are 3 departments that we have that have a lot of federal funding, a lot of research expenditures in that department, lots of publications. How can we bring those 3 departments together around a central theme that where they could each contribute something and create this innovative structure, this innovative approach to asking some biomedical research question. Of course, you have to have strong facilities and potential for cores, or at least potential for expansion of existing cores. Often that's what the center grant will require. You got to know you're going to have institutional support for the program project. Which would be not just facilities and pre-award support in submitting this complicated structure, but also seed funding leading up to it. And that's something we'll talk about in my next in a month when I give the next part of this. And to that point, potential for funding in advance. So is your organization going to be in a position to provide seed funding for this? And can you think of seed funding that you can get from other entities like state level organizations or private foundations, potentially to fund, for example, a piece of equipment that might go into launching a core that you will then propose to expand within the program project grant. And you have to know that your idea is innovative. So it can't just be, something that, is not kind of a cutting edge kind of thing that NIH would be interested in. And this is where you want to run it by your program officer. And you want to make sure that your team offers a competitive advantage such that this is not work that could be done by another group in the country, typically. Okay, so I'm going to, I know there was a lot of information, and what I would like to do is just give you a screenshot of, I wrote a blog post where I got this down to 10 questions. So I thought that would be more helpful for you folks. So let's share that screenshot. And the link for that, this is published on our website. The link for that is now in the chat. But here are the 10 questions, and hopefully you guys can see that. But do we have multiple areas of true research strength at our university? In other words, departments with substantial R01 funding and publications. Do our areas of research strength complement and form potential synergies around a central theme, some sort of disease area or clinical problem, unmet clinical need, or a problem in biomedical research? Is the program truly innovative? Have others proposed something similar, or is this a unique strategy for attacking a given biomedical research problem? Do we offer a competitive advantage when compared to other potential center grant applicants across the country? Could another university just as easily do this work potentially better? Why will POs care about this topic? Does it address an area of highest programmatic priority for the IC, given that program officers have very limited money? What would Congress or taxpayers see as the national relevance of this? This is particularly important in the current administration. Do we have several candidates for PI who offer strong scientific backgrounds, R01 funding, a track record of leadership, and bandwidth to run the center? Or if you can't check all those boxes with a single person, more typically it's a multi-PI plan. 2 or 3 people may be running the center, and typically there's an eminence who is like a very senior level person who has connections in the institute and knows the program officers and has run center grants, a mid-level person who is more likely to have the bandwidth, and potentially a junior person as well. Do we have strong facilities and potential for cores or expansion of existing cores? Are we likely to obtain university support for the program project? And is there potential for seed funding in advance of the application, both from the university and from other entities? So there's a little more to this blog post. I'm not going to sit here and read it to you because you can do that on your own, but there is certainly you can read that on our website there. If you go into the chat, let's see. Yep, there's a link to today's blog post in the chat, along with that bootcamp registration link. And if you are interested in a deeper dive on this topic, most of you are coming to us through an institutional library membership, which means that you have access to Master the P series free of charge through your institutional library membership. So that's newly updated. I have new samples in there from the last time we updated the course. So I would encourage you to check that out. Okay, so I am going to shift gears and move over to the questions. Unrelated to center grant applications, how many POs do I need to contact? And some of them are on vacation. Yeah, so the reason the program officers are on vacation it's the same reason that I'm going to be going on vacation soon, because we're coming out of an extraordinarily busy period. So program officers keep the same cycle that I do, that pre-award support people do, which is that we tend to be, those of us in the NIH world tend to be extraordinarily busy. For example, in September and October, we start to get a little less busy as October wears on, and we pass the deadlines for the case submissions and the small format Rs like R21s. November 5th is the resubmission deadline, and then there are a few other resubmission deadlines after that. And then most of us go on vacation in November. I will be away on vacation in November. So it's a little hard to get a hold of them now and into November, but keep trying. How many program officers do you need to contact? As many as are relevant to your project. So if you're, for example, doing something that is directly relevant to NCI, you probably just need to contact one. That would be the one program officer that is listed on your NOFO. But if you come to the boot camp tomorrow, or watch chapter 2 of Master the R series, which is what the boot camp will be tomorrow, I'll give you an example of somebody who contacted 5. It was somebody who was looking at, suicidality in Alaskan Native youth. So this was an actual client I had many, many years ago. She was an NSF-funded investigator. And she contacted program officers at mental health because it was suicidality. What at the time was the Office of Tribal Health, I think it was, but now she would be contacting Minority Health Institute. She contacted NIAAA and NIDA because there were substance use issues involved, and I forget what the 5th one was, but she actually reached out to 5 of them. 2 of them dropped out immediately, and 3 of them co-sponsored. There was an office and 2 institutes that co-sponsored it, and one of them was the primary. So it really depends on what you're doing and what is relevant to your work. So how many POs should you contact is going to be, the answer to that will be a direct result of your research in the Reporter website. So you're going to go into Reporter and search your topic area and see which institutes have funded projects similar to yours. And you're going to do a little deeper dive into those projects. And if there are 2 or 3 institutes that have funded work that's similar to yours, then that's how many program officers you're going to contact. If only 1, then just 1. Or maybe it's all within the same institute, but there are 2 different NOFOs you're considering. Maybe one is the parent announcement and one is a topic-specific NOFO, in which case it would be 2. So I can't answer the question, how many POs. It's a direct result of the preparation steps that you take, which are laid out in excruciating detail in chapters 1 and 2 of Master the R series, or you can come to boot camp and learn about it there. Okay, if I'm eligible for a K award when I submit, but switch to a staff position prior to the award approval, will I still be eligible to receive the award? So I don't know, right? Because the staff position, when you say a staff position, I don't exactly know what that means at your organization. So at some universities, staff positions are actually tenure track. I actually have an organization on this call that their tenure track positions are called staff positions. If you are meaning that your staff position is not tenure track, that's not relevant to NIH. And this is a question I seem to be getting asked every session. It's curious, this eligibility question. So I'm going to say it again, that NIH doesn't have any requirements for you to have an R01, to have a tenure track position to apply for your position. However, your university may have requirements. So you need to check with your pre-award support people to see, like, in order for them to sponsor you on a K award, do you have to be, in a specific type of position? Does it, and it depends on the K, right? Because for some Ks, it's a postdoc, for some Ks, it's not. So you're going to have to find out from your university what their requirements are. NIH typically does not have such requirements. So it's usually going to be a function of your university's requirements. Okay, and then the person says, you answered my question about how many to contact. I've gotten automatic replies from all the POs related to my KO1 starting with the furlough, right? So program officers are not allowed to work right now. So you have to wait for the government shutdown to end. So a lot of them are going to take vacations now, but for some of them, they're going to take no vacations in November. So government shutdowns do not typically last months. They usually last weeks because it's hugely problematic across all areas of government and for taxpayers who vote, not to be able to have the government running. So, typically a government shutdown lasts for weeks, not months. So I would be looking for the shutdown to end. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but maybe within the next week or so. And I apologize. There's all of a sudden the sun has come out and there's like, there we go. That's much better. Yeah, I would keep track of when things reopen and the program officers are no longer furloughed. But even after that, you're going to have some issues with program officers being on vacation, because this is the time that, we're all of us who work on that 4-month NIH cycle. This is the only lull in the cycle, is like coming out of the deadlines and before things get really crazy for the next set of deadlines. So even after things reopen, you may have a little bit of trouble reaching the program officers. Just do the best you can to try to reach them. Okay, and this is a person saying, I was the one who asked the question about the Stephen Katz grant. I think you were the one who asked in the first Friday session, which I had to cut short because my daughter was coming out of surgery. I had to cut that 5 minutes short, and I have not yet responded to your email. I apologize. I will be responding to that soon. Could you please clarify on what counts as preliminary, non-preliminary data for this grant? Could you also briefly talk about the kinds of projects and ideas that have been successfully funded through this mechanism? So the second one I can't do because of confidentiality issues. And I don't know of any samples that are online at NIH of successfully funded applications. But what you could do is ask your pre-award support office if they would be willing to share. I don't remember where you're located, but ask your pre-award support office if they have had any successful Katz applications go in the last couple of years. I mean, it's only been around a couple of years, and see if they could give you the name of the PI, and you could reach out to the PI and ask if it would be okay to see their work, particularly if you're not a direct competitor of theirs. But in terms of what counts as preliminary data, I'm going to try to speak in the most generic terms possible so that I'm not violating any confidentiality on applications on which I've worked. But what I often see people do is they may take a type of methodology that they have developed and propose to apply it in a new disease area, a new system, that kind of thing, where they have no preliminary data, which I think I've said before, but most, and I'll just say this off the cuff, most of my Katz applicants have preliminary data, they just don't report them. And so they'll put in the Katz when they don't have enough preliminary data to be competitive in the R series, particularly at the R01 level. And what they do is put the Katz in, and while they're waiting for an answer on the Katz, which is, at NIH, an answer could take, from the time you upload to the time you get an answer, could be 9 months or more. While they're waiting for an answer on the Katz, they're using their other funding sources, startup funds and other funding sources to build up their preliminary data so that if they don't get the Katz, they can immediately pivot and resubmit in the R series. So when we say no preliminary data, I would amend that to say no reported preliminary data. So the intent of the Katz is for ESIs who are switching career directions, switching directions in some line of their research. So, and you're not allowed to report preliminary data of any kind. So you could, in the example that I gave you, you could the rationale for the work that you're proposing is that you have developed this methodology that has worked beautifully in this one system, and that's an area that you have explored and gotten grants in and published in, and now you're proposing to apply that methodology or technique or approach in a whole new area, a new system, a new disease area for which you have no reported preliminary data. So that would be an example without violating confidentiality of a situation where it's like, how do you propose something if you have no preliminary data? Well, it doesn't mean that you haven't done some kind of legwork to lay down the feasibility or rationale behind this project, but you have no data specifically in the area in which you're proposing. So I hope that helps a little bit in terms of understanding what they mean by no preliminary data, which seems like an odd thing to say because you still have to support the rationale for the project, but that would be a kind of a typical scenario. Hi, sorry, joined late, but my R21 grant was supposed to be reviewed today. Any idea how long it will be postponed? Weeks, months? So that's a good question because, again, it's the government shutdown. Government shutdowns last weeks. They don't last months. But the problem is the things that are not happening have to be rescheduled around the schedules of a lot of people. So it is a really good question. If your study section was supposed to meet today and it's not meeting because of the government shutdown, when in the world is that study section going to be rescheduled? It's hard to say. There are a number of options. Let's say the government reopens on Monday. Knock on wood would be a nice thing. Program officers are going to be scrambling to figure out things like this, like how to reschedule, or it's the SRO, sorry. The SRO is going to be scrambling to figure out how to reschedule these study section meetings. And I'm pretty sure they're canceled because even though they're part of CSR, it's under the NIH umbrella and it's still part of the government. So I'm pretty sure it's all shut down. So remember in the spring when the same thing happened and the administration canceled all those meetings? It can take time for these meetings to be scheduled. But if I were an SRO, I might consider, for example, doing a virtual session like they did during the pandemic, which would make it a lot easier to reschedule as opposed to flying everybody into Washington, which is going to be hard to reschedule. So I don't know is the short answer. My guess is they're going to think about, the SROs are going to think about doing a virtual option, which is a shame because I feel like you lose a certain quality of the discussion when it's done virtually like that. Yeah, I don't know. My guess is that when things reopen, you'll get a message from the SRO or from CSR, Center for Scientific Review, saying that they're working on it and when they hope to be able to do that. But yeah, it could be a matter of weeks. It could take a couple of months. But my guess is CSR is going to opt for virtual and try to have it done within weeks, if I had to guess. But none of us know right now. Oh, and here's somebody saying he thinks he found a Katz Ames page sample. So Riley, if you could grab that, I'm going to open it up. If you could grab that and drop that in the chat for people. Greg, you've been an MVP, like sourcing information for us during these sessions lately. It's been really He said not the specific aims page, rather the link is to new research directions attachment. But do they give a sample for that? Let's see. I'm looking at it now. Yes, they do. It is a sample. So I'm going to screen share it. And Riley's going to drop the link in the chat. Oh, hold on a second. Let me expand the view because you'll never be able to read this. There we go. Much better. Okay. So Riley dropped the link for this in the chat. But this is a sample of a new research direction, which isn't exactly the same thing as what is considered preliminary data, but it's helpful. So on the Katz, there's this one-page document that talks about new research directions. So here the person is talking about what they did before, and I'm looking at this for the first time, so I'm just kind of winging it. But here they're talking about what in 30,000 foot level, what they've done before. They're going to move in a new conceptual direction. So conceptually, these studies focused on sound processing and auditory cortical circuitry in healthy animals, not disease models. So you can see where it's like exactly what I was talking about, where a person is taking a type of study and that they had done in healthy animals, and now they're going to shift to disease models, so animal models of disease, which is still allowed, by the way. This is another thing that there seems to be a lot of confusion about. So NIH has said they won't issue new NOFOs that are focused specifically on animal models of research, but most institutes are still allowing research that's done in animal models. And if you're really trying to take that step toward human work, some people are using organoids or xenografts to try to like move or samples from human subjects to kind of put a toe in that direction. So it's not strictly just animal models. But anyway, so this is how they're justifying it. So it's a new conceptual direction. Oh, and they're saying it's new in terms of methodologies as well. So their previous work relied on these things, but the new proposal will examine the role of HL and HC dysfunction, which will require 6 new methods. So you can see how they've kind of like, it's a little tricky because they're probably using some of these old methods as well, but they're going to do new methods. And then they have a section comparison to prior work. So that's an example for you. It doesn't exactly get at the question of what can you consider preliminary data or not preliminary data, but it does kind of get at this idea of what's the new direction and how does this differ from the previous direction. So hopefully, if any of you are considering a Katz, that is useful for you. And I will say the Katz is one of the few ESI specific no. Of course, if you're ESI, you can submit to any R01 mechanism and have an ESI funding advantage for the most part. So like if you want to submit to the parent R01, you're going to have the ESI funding advantage. But if you're looking for a mechanism that is specific, an R01 mechanism specific for ESIs and non-ESIs cannot apply, this is one of the only ones that is actually active at the moment. The DP2 and the DP5 are not active. Those were 2 ESI-focused NOFOs in the high-risk, high-reward portfolio. So it's the Katz or the Mira. There's an I think there are 4 institutes that sponsor Miras. The biggest one is NIGMS. And I think NIGMS definitely has one that's specific to ESIs. I think some of the other ones do as well. But those are the only ones. Other than that, you're going into parent announcements with the ESI funding advantage. We have like 1 or 2 minutes left. Let me see if there are any more questions. I'm going to leave the Q&A box open. So If people have questions about program projects, I'm happy to answer that. And otherwise, I hope to see some of you at Master the R Series Bootcamp tomorrow. We'll be doing Chapter 2. So we'll be talking about how to write the specific aims page and then how to use the aims page to continue your prep work, which will include all of this stuff about contacting the program officer and how many program officers and all of that. Yeah, and then we'll move on with chapters 3 and 4 in the subsequent weeks. So, and then I'll be going on vacation between the Ask the Grant Writing Expert sessions. I go on vacation right after a session and return right before one. So I won't have to cancel any due to my vacation. But yeah, so okay. So if anybody wants a deeper dive into the program project grants, check out Master the P series. Most of you have free access to that. And otherwise, I think that's it for today. I think I've successfully gotten rid of that sun glare that was in the video. So I wish you all the best of luck, as the French would say, courage. And I will see you all, hopefully some of you tomorrow. And if not tomorrow, then in 2 weeks, when I will be having a guest who will be talking about the importance of project management on a grant application. So I will see you all then. Best of luck. Have a great day. Bye-bye.